Hey. Hi, everyone. This is Joy Elberth. So today my live is actually in our kitchen. This is my daughter, Tora.
Hello!
Okay, so I'm at home today, and so this is kind of part of having a mom and pop thing is we don't have a standard office space yet in the office at home. So can you close the door completely before you close that drawer there before you close the door? So we have to deal with like little things like we homeschool children, and there are things that happen at home. Like 2 days ago when we did our first show, it was actually kind of distracted a bit because there was some pipe issues that we had to handle before I could kind of switch over to this. So there's a lot of multitasking, and that is what it is, and we deal with it and move on. Someone who taught me a lot once told me that when you're trying to do amazing things, and you kind of have to do amazing things, I mean, not amazing, but like necessary for things you care about, then sometimes you have to just make sure that whatever you're doing, your children are kind of along with you, not getting in the way, but kind of along with you on the experience. So that's something we have to deal with every day. So I'm going to actually make sure, are you okay making the rest of this?
Yeah.
Okay. So I also want to clean up a little bit here before getting outside. I'm going to take a walk outside for a second, Tora, and then we're going to, and we are going to talk about health and kind of the way that nature can help us with health factors. So let me real quick wash a pan, and I'm going to, yeah. Hi.
Hi.
There she is. Okay. So,
So you're basically washing a pan.
I know it's not exactly the ideal thing to be doing on a live broadcast, but you know what?
It's what we're doing.
It's what we're doing. And so, yeah. So, Tora, there's also some soup in the fridge. So, Tora has helped me design a playhouse for her later in our 4-acre forest. We're kind of experimenting with cob. We're learning that technology, and she decided that she wanted to make a playhouse out of the cob technology herself, and so she's kind of made not really a mock-up yet. We haven't done the 3D model yet, but we're in the design phase, so we're on pen and paper. I should say crayons and paper. Yeah, right now. So it looks pretty cool. Maybe I'll show it to you if I get done here. So
it's something that dripped on me.
it did. Did you want to get that soup bowl out of the fridge so that I can put it in the microwave for you, honey?
I don't want.
You don't want soup?
Yeah.
Really? Yeah. You're just gonna have cheesy bread and that's it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, you need some vegetable matter in your lunch, don't you?
Yeah, I'll go.
What do you want to eat?
Carrots.
Carrots?
Yeah.
Okay.
With
Well,
it.
what else do you want to eat? Is there anything else in there that you could eat with the carrots?
Grapes. I love grapes.
You can eat grapes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Except there's not much.
There's not much. Do you want to go ahead and finish it out?
Sure.
And throw the rest of that, the grape stems in the compost crop?
Yeah.
Okay. That's great. Okay.
Right
So,
away.
all right. I'm going to dry my hands real quick, and let's go outside.
Outside.
Not you. Them.
Oh.
Them. We're going to go outside. Yeah. Okay. So,
I want to come with you.
you want to come with?
Yeah.
But how are you going to know when your cheesy bread's done?
Oh.
And do you have your shoes on?
No.
No? Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Okie doke. Here we go. She may actually end up coming out with us. I was going to go on like walk in a park, but I spent too much time this morning grant writing and got, carried away. That's kind of a daily thing right now. Now that we're kind of slowing down on the outside projects, I am ramping up my efforts to have my grant writing and like next year's strategy all done. So I can always tell that I've been working on grant writing because my eyes have this thing that like gets a little bit heavier there. So I've been looking at it. So let me find a place to sit down. And down the street, the construction people are working on fixing our pipes in our neighborhood. In Olathe, there's kind of some issues with the pipes tend to rust or seep metals into the water around here, and so like our bath water will end up looking rusty and orange every once in a while. So they are working on fixing that down the street. They dug up the entire street. It's been like closed for a month or two now, and they're just now kind of putting the top layers of the street back together. They've been working on layering. We've been watching that whole experience of having our street made for us, so that's been interesting. So let's talk about nature. And it's kind of funny to be talking about this with like heavy equipment in the background going crazy, but we're going to talk about it anyway because it was on the schedule and I'm doing it. So let's do it. So when I think I told you yesterday about kind of our experience with poverty, but I didn't talk much about like another kind of blessing that we that we kind of discovered when we moved down to the Ozarks, and that was that this whole huge problem with Luke's eye kind of went away and like really fast. So doctors had been years, just like nearly a decade, and like pumping him full of stuff that didn't work, and it was kind of frustrating and then very surprising to see it all kind of go poof in like 3 months. So his healing kind of made us really look at why the heck would that happen? Why would suddenly somebody's health, absent of any medical advice or any expert's presence, just completely heal? So when we did our own kind of research about his condition, what other people had experienced would help his condition, we noticed that there was a common thread in the kind of self-reporting of other people who had his condition and noticed improvements. And that was that whenever they kind of had a lifestyle change that involved less stress, or whenever they were able to take a break from something that had been stressing them out, that there was a definite improvement or kind of a lull or a pause in the symptoms that had been really making life miserable for them. So we noticed that too, and we thought, okay, that's something, So what exactly changed in our life that might have kind of brought that on? And we identified that he hadn't been driving in an hour of traffic every single day. It's just like, and that's what he was driving through, is awful on people's sensibility when they get to work, and then their sensibility, I know, when they get home. So that was, for people who don't particularly experience or they don't particularly like being around humans behaving badly on a regular basis. Like, I can forgive that. I can take it a lot longer than Luke can. And so he would, just not really take it well, but then he'd have to get, he'd get to work and he would have to suddenly perform himself, conduct himself professionally. So that was kind of a bit of self-lying, like lying to himself about his feelings regarding the drive on the way to work. And so that was stressful. The second thing that we thought was a factor was that he wasn't actually talking to angry people 24/7, which is kind of what he had to do as a supervisor at this cable company. So his tech support and customer service direct reports, that was what he started off doing, and ended up, when he was a supervisor for them, he would get the escalated calls. So people who were really, really angry. So that was hard on him because, he doesn't like to be around people behaving badly. So what do you think was happening there? People behaving badly. So then all of that kind of went away when we got to the Ozarks. So that was one factor. And I guess the second factor, I don't know, I'm not very organized today. So then the other thing that he knows changed is that instead of going to fast food restaurants every day for lunch, or having to cram some small meal that he had prepared from home and then getting hungry halfway through and getting a kind of candy bar or something from a snack machine to help him feel better. He was actually eating food that we'd fixed at home. So I'm trying to figure out a place that I can actually be and really talk. And I'm thinking maybe this tree is going to help me out here. Here we go. Is this a good butt place? Yes, this is a good place for my butt to sit. Okie doke. There we go. Much better. It's kind of uncomfortable. This is bark. That's better. Okay, that works. So then when we were fixing our own food, we actually, because of our financial circumstances, we couldn't really get a lot of pre-prepared stuff, and we actually had more access to things that had been grown out of the ground, and so we used that. We used the farmers market produce that we found at the farmers market that was in town, which was because of the living arrangement the living cost of living is what I'm trying to say. The cost of living in Mountain View, Missouri was a lot lower than we'd experienced before, and so everything was cheaper. So you go to the farmers market, it was cheaper. You would go to the grocery store, that was cheaper too, but for some reason they really priced their produce a lot lower than people price produce here in the city. So that wasn't the case with pre-prepared meals that were on the shelf. I think there's something about the economics of being able to ship that in. Prices are less flexible, I think, with with things that are on the shelf. But yeah, that meant that we were making our food out of fresh harvested vegetables, and we were eating fresh fruits as snacks and desserts and things like that. So big surprise, my daughter has come outside. Big surprise. Yeah. And Tora, you have shoes? Nope, you're barefoot. That's good enough. Okay, as long as you're not ruining socks, I'm okay with that. All right, cool. So yeah, we had stress, we had the food, there was family time, and there was church time. We connected with a church that was in town and wasn't too horribly judgy, and it's kind of a thing that we can't really abide is judginess, and so we didn't get stressed out when we got to church and stayed in church. So that was nice. But also the people who went to the church were super embracing of what we were doing, why we were doing it. That was basically trying to help youth access vocational training so that they could, for one, not get sucked away out to college where they, on a large scale, were failing in the first 2 years, but then they were stuck and not coming back home. And two, we were trying to, when the kids did get to stay home, we were trying to kind of revive the pool of qualified workmen to help replace roofs and repair plumbing and electric systems within homes, because that was kind of contributing to the housing crisis that was down in the Ozarks. So luckily this church, like the people at this church, really, that resonated with them. They understood it, and they just absolutely embraced us with all sorts of like, come to this potluck dinner. No, don't worry about paying. Just come and share a meal with us. Come eat our food. And the conversations that happened there were so supportive. So, I mean, that was really lucky, I think, for us in very red area. And I say red area with utmost love for people who have conservative ideologies. Sometimes those conservative ideologies got in the way of helping individuals who sometimes make life hard for conservative individuals in the Ozarks, because when there's no love for people who are in lower socioeconomic situations, people who are in lower socioeconomic situations tend to act out in ways that are damaging to conservative thinkers. So a battle, a hatred of poverty, and this battle against people who had less. And that was like totally, it was weird to us, because we know that if we if everyone concentrates on helping lift the lives of people who are experiencing hardship, then those people won't feel wronged. They won't ever have a chance to feel like society's failed them if society doesn't fail them. So, I mean, I know that's a totally huge order. It's a very tall order, but I don't know, for some reason, we're just the type of people who want to kind of deliver on that order. So that's our order. Like, I don't know, like a monk or something has an order. Yes, Tora.
Can I have some?
Can you what?
Can I have some dessert?
What kind of dessert would you like?
Candy.
Yeah, I know, because it's Halloween, isn't it? You know what? I think you should go and get your kitty cat bag and bring it out here, and then show the people on the video what you're going to be eating. Okay. That's going to guarantee that she only gets to eat one, or maybe we'll only eat one. I don't know. We'll see. At least it'll be in my presence so I can monitor the eating of candy. Anyway, so a supportive environment, like a supportive network of people, was really, I think, essential in helping us recover from stressful craziness that had happened in an urban area. And so what do we got now? We have less stress, we have better food, we have better social supports. And the fourth thing that really surprised us, that people who have autoimmune disorders, there we go, autoimmune disorders, they talk about having helped them. The fourth thing is exposure to nature. And so that wasn't really something we heard about and then went and did, and then it worked for us. It's something that we did anyway, because fortunately out in the middle of nowhere, Missouri, in the southern kind of central portion of the state, there's all sorts. I'm like, oh yeah, the southeast portion. Oh my gosh, the whole Missouri, like Ozarks area, is really this pristine, lush environment that is kind of America's best kept secret. And it's also a very dangerous place, because as America's best kept secret, people are left to their own devices to solve problems like, oh, this is a totally other subject, but problems like if they don't trust the people they see driving on the road, they take care of it themselves. Really awful things. So, there's a reason it's kind of not well traveled. I think that could change, and that could be good for some people that live in the Ozarks, but yeah. Moving on. Oh, candy break. Hold on. Which one? Which one would you like to try? Which one? This. Okay. Thank you so much for choosing one candy. I'm going to grab that bag right here. I'm going to put that right over here.
And be careful.
And I'll take that in when I go. Be careful. What?
And be careful for the meow meow button.
Okay.
The button that makes it go meow.
I will. I won't push that button. Okay. Right. So yeah. So we kind of just had rivers down the road from where we lived, and it's not like just a river. A river in that area, especially. Wow, we have a plane going overhead, and that's probably making it hard to hear. Yay. Urban life. Hashtag urban life. Do you like that sucker? Yeah. Okay. So, there we go. We had rivers down the road, and to get to the rivers, we had to kind of travel down these hills, and they were just gorgeous. They had rock bluffs, they had trees. Trees, like not just trees in the middle of a field, but like forests, whole just rich ecosystems of understory and canopy, and the wildlife that we would see driving down there was just out of this world and unpredictable and always so diverse. And you're back. Hi. And when we'd get onto the river, we'd actually get down to the river after all of this kind of descending these landscapes that were just gorgeous. We'd get to the river, and the river would have these beautiful rounded stones of different colors in it. And we'd step out onto the river. We had to learn how to do that with our feet, because that was a totally different experience. It took some skill. What do you think about that? Do you remember those stones on the side of the river and how it was hard to step on them with bare feet?
Yeah.
It took a while to get used to, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, anyway, when we got out onto the bank of the river, it was all stone. It was all kind of rocks. And the sound of the river rushing by was something, calming. The appearance of the rock bluffs that were on each side of the river that had resulted from years of erosion, that was gorgeous. The appearance of the cascades of trees that were coming off of those rock bluffs, that was gorgeous. The sounds of the crickets and the frogs and the songbirds, hearing, even when there were people there, I found the laughs of children to be kind of relaxing. Luke, not so much, but and so I think all of those experiences put together made it so that when I stepped on the bank of the river in the middle of the forest, I actually felt my hands kind of tingling, and it felt like my muscles all over my body relaxing, and it was like the adrenaline was just kind of sloughing off of my body and dripping out of my fingers. I can't ever describe it any other way, because that's honestly how it felt like. I feel so goofy whenever I describe it that way, because it sounds so like hippie and kind of granola crunchy bomb, and I don't think that's quite who I am. So I feel really goofy about that. I wouldn't say it unless it was exactly accurate to how it felt. So that was kind of really awesome. And Luke and I went there. It was about 15 minutes drive from the place we were staying, the house that we were staying in. And that was something that we felt after analyzing this whole 3-month recovery. That was something that we really feel made a huge difference in helping Luke kind of self-manage his anxiety level, his stress levels. Luke's not one who has ever has anxiety issues. Like, you would never know person to person. He just doesn't express it. Some people have anxiety attacks. I think sometimes that's evidence that they need to manage something better, but it's also maybe some release of that stress. And Luke is the type of person who completely internalizes it and never lets any of it out, never lets anybody know there's something weird going on. So yeah, that was the 4 factors that we think really made a difference. So, you know, now that we have a nonprofit organization that is trying to kind of recreate those kinds of experiences for other people, we have to grant write. We have to go out and like prove the worth of what we're doing to people who will help us pay our salaries, which is a challenge. But you know, it's less of a challenge as time goes on. So the more and more work I do on actually writing what we're doing, writing grants and describing it to people who are completely out of the experience and have no, as far as I know, they have no idea what I'm talking about. Part of that is looking for actual empirical evidence that nature experiences have an effect on health. Now, I've found really easily the studies that say that access to fresh food affects people's health on the long term. So that was really easy to find, and it's very applicable to our project since our 4-acre forest is in the middle of the worst degree of USDA food desert possible. So that was easy to do. The thing is, most of our project is in a shaded area, and so honestly, the only food products that we can probably encourage to happen there are mushrooms and maybe some garlic and onions because the deer won't eat them as much, and maybe some berries because the thorns deter the deer from eating them, but they still get to them. So our actual level of production isn't going to be huge. So I really felt that the value of what we're doing is education about health, education about environmentalism being a actual benefit to humanity. So that's what I've been working on. And one of the biggest stumbling blocks was defending how do we say that the experience of nature is really important. And so most recently, I had a friend who is also, she's another dreamer, and she follows projects and makes them into something that people can believe in. And so she understands the difficulty of that whole vision process and execution process. But she suggested that we somehow figure out a way to be forest guides, because the experience of walking in a forest has been shown to significantly lower people's blood pressures, when they're walking in the forest. And when they get to a point where they can appreciate the forest, it actually deepens that benefit. And so I'm looking into that. And there's also there's studies out there that are talking about how just the presence of green space in an urban area, and I'm not talking about lawns, when we're talking actual productive green space, we're talking about rich environments that have a variety of things to look at that include trees and space between trees. So you have that close versus far experience, in the same moment. And the presence of wildlife and an environment that is an urban environment that is friendly to wildlife, which is kind of difficult to do with cars and everything. But that kind of thing, if it's nearby resident areas, the crime rate will go down, actually. So we found that really surprising. And I like that, because that means that if someone else believes in what we're doing, then we will actually have kind of other support beyond our friends and family who are trying to support us as much as they can, and they're so gracious. But a few individuals can only do so much. Over 100 volunteers this summer have been in our forest, and that is super, super, super helpful. We've gotten so much done we never would have done without their involvement. And as leaders of that effort, we are so, so grateful that they've kind of identified that this is a really important point to make to the world. So, but, you know, the real challenge for us as people at the head of this effort is that we need to actually live and eat. So that's kind of why I'm going over all of these kind of stats and research studies and things like that, so that I can prove the importance of what we're doing to people who have enough of a pocketbook that they could help us actually make a living following our plans through. So anyway, today I'm working on a grant that wants to encourage people to experience nature and enrich habitats that can be walkable, so that it's something that humans can coexist with animals as they're experiencing hikes and things in an urban environment, especially. So that's a really cool grant opportunity for me. But I think that I'm looking at that particular grant. It's small enough that I think it's a good matching opportunity. So I'm looking at what we would need to make a bridge to connect the two parts of the trail. There's the back part of the trail is where we keep our volunteer tools, and we have our storage shed. And we'd like to someday have a greenhouse where we can start seeds for the vegetable garden that's at the trailhead on the street. It's the only place on the whole property, the whole 4 acres, that actually gets sun. And so that's great that it's back there, but the trails really don't connect. So we kind of need a bridge to go over this rocky gully that diverts storm water during like huge deluges, you know. So it needs to be the type of bridge that will be able to stand up to high water. I think that also if it's the kind of bridge that it functions also as a dam, it would be helpful to kind of mediate some of the damage that's happening downstream by the silt, the kind of things that are coming down the hill from residential houses, and even I don't think in our area it's businesses, but anyway, at least residential houses. So like lawn care chemicals, this kind of thing, and putting a wetland in would hopefully, if we do things right, help filter out things like that before they get to the Blue River, before they get to the Missouri River or the Mississippi or the Gulf of Mexico. So it's all a chain, you know. So yeah, that's what I'm working on today, and I'm hoping that we'll be successful in getting this grant. We've only gotten 1 grant so far, but I'm going to keep on writing and keep on trying. I've only written like 3 or 4 because there weren't a lot of grants that would accept an application without a approved board budget. So we got that done actually in the last board meeting. Was it last week or the one before that? But anyway, either way, it's been done recently, and so now that kind of gives me the go ahead to start writing the big grants. So I hope to goodness I'm writing it the right way, and it's going to get somewhere, and we'll have some real kind of steam behind our engine here. So I think that's about it. I'm going to cut this off and say goodbye to everyone. I hope everyone has a great day. And if you'd like to subscribe, that's one of the ways that you can support what we're doing. We'd like to see if these videos could somehow become, you know, popular and monetizable. And if that could happen, that's something you can help us to fund what we're doing without even like giving us a cent. So go ahead and hit the subscribe button if you can manage that. If you're like I'm totally, I feel so horrible because I'm like not as tech savvy as I used to be. And so sometimes I can't really figure out how to subscribe to somebody's podcast, but I figure it out eventually. But yeah, go ahead and try to subscribe. Leave your comments below if you have any suggestions about how we could do anything that we've talked about in our discussion here. And yeah, have a good week. I'll see you guys later. There we go.